Welcome to Final Approach with Chris Gregory. I am a philomath who is somebody who loves to learn things. One of the things that I've learned is that everyone has a tale to tell and a lesson to teach. From pilots to farriers to musicians to authors and creators, I'm going to explore my interests while introducing you to some amazing people. Pre-flight is complete and we have clearance, so let's kick the tires and start the fires. Where to begin? My next guest was born in Texas in 1938 and has lived a full life of success that most can only dream of. Red Steagall was born to be a cowboy and touch and inspire the lives of millions through his poetry and music. Surviving polio at the age of 15 that damaged his shoulder to the point that he could not move his left arm, he still went on to become a famous guitar player and singer. Red discovered Reba McEntire and blessed our world by exposing her beautiful talent. He has worked with and become friends with so many names that you would recognize, like Wilford Brimley, Dean Smith, Roy Clark, Boots O'Neill, Buster Welch, Jim Shoulders, etc. 23 albums and hundreds of records later, Red still performs concerts and produces radio and television shows. I was honored and surprised that this great star was so willing to meet with me and help me move this podcast forward, and my short time with Red is something that I will forever remember and treasure. His enormous presence comes through a microphone, as you are about to see, and I am certain that those of you that are not Red Steagall fans yet are about to become one. Our clearance is approved as filed. Enjoy the ride. Ladies and gentlemen, I am with Red Steagall, and yes, the Red Steagall that you're thinking of, the gentleman who sings for us rodeo cowboys. This man's won more accolades and been more places. I just can't tell you how honored I am. I'm going to have you Google him so that you can see all of his accolades and Hall of Fame inductions. And he was gracious enough to sit down with me. I'm sitting in his office surrounded by the Western world. There's steer heads on the wall, saddles on the rack, halters on the leather-covered chairs, and it is a beautiful place.
Well, thank you. We're comfortable here. We've been here for 46 years.
46 years. That's incredible. I went down the road rodeoing. I used to rodeo for New Mexico Military Institute in high school, and everybody was singing your songs back then that was on the road with me. You've got how many albums now, sir? 20?
23.
23. That is just unbelievable.
Spread out over 53 years. So.
Yeah, but still, that's one every other year, just about. That is fantastic. What really inspired me about you was the fact that you had polio.
Uh-huh.
I saw in an interview you said that you went to the doctor for some hip trouble, and the nurse said, "What is polio?" So you had polio in early 50s?
In September of 54. And in January of 55, the Salk vaccine was in full use. And so I'm really the last of the polio class. There weren't very many of us in the Panhandle at that time that had the disease. I had one friend when we were 11. He was my best friend, and he died from bulbar polio.
What is bulbar polio?
Well, there were three types of polio. Bulbar, which affected the involuntary muscles. Nothing you could do about it. That's why the people wound up in iron lungs. Some of them survived that, and some of them didn't. And he didn't. Then there was paralytic and non-paralytic. Mine was paralytic, and I lost the use of my left shoulder. The deltoid muscles were destroyed.
And at this time, you were a football star, and you were riding bulls, right?
Well, I don't know that I was a football star, but I was starting at left end on a state championship team.
That's the star.
That was my world. Was playing football for the Phillips Blackhawks.
Did you play defense too?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I don't think I did.
All right. Well, fair enough.
Then as far as riding the bulls, that all happened when I got to college. And three guys put me on a bucking barrel, and they tied my left arm down with an elastic bandage so I wouldn't slap the bull. They tried night after night to throw me off that barrel. I was afraid to fall off of it. I was afraid to turn loose and get bucked off of it.
So you're riding it without a free arm then, basically?
Yes.
I'll be dang.
Yeah. So my balance was horrible. And so they entered me in the intramural rodeo, and I won it.
Wow.
So I thought I was a bull rider.
Did you have your left arm strapped down to
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
dang.
to keep it from touching the bull, and being disqualified.
I cannot imagine getting on a bull, your arm tied.
The only thing that I had to use for balance was my spurs. And for 3 years, I entered all the amateur rodeos up in the Panhandle of Texas and eastern New Mexico and western Kansas and the Oklahoma Panhandle.
Wow.
And I never did win a dime. So it was a 4th of July, and we were at Raton, and Waltall's ball had an big old bull, a big old Brammer bull, and he called him number 1. He was his best bull. About the first jump out, and I'd watched him buck several times, and I knew he was going to spin to the left. And he did, and I lost my left spur, and it threw me up against the chute gates and cracked some ribs. I found that spur, and I got my bull rope and gave him to my little brother, and I said, let's go to Red River and hang out, and I'm going to start playing dances, and I'm not going to get on any more bulls, so you use this equipment.
And you play a guitar as a right-handed person with your left hand doing chords without the use of your left shoulder.
Right.
So I know that the mandolin was how you were recovering in the early days. Your chord selection, is it kind of limited because of that?
Extremely limited.
Yeah.
I can't move my arm up and down the neck. So the boys in my band will tell you that I'm not a musician. I beat a guitar.
I don't think that's true. I've been watching lots of YouTube. You guys check it out. He is a musician and a half.
All I can do is play open chords.
Okay.
And so everything I write is in those open chords, and I can play those all day long. It's getting harder and harder to accompany myself these days as I mature. I'm not getting older. I'm maturing. It was difficult, but not impossible.
But it's also incredible. I mean, to become famous for playing a guitar without the use of your left shoulder and to ride bulls without your left hand. I was a horrible bull rider. I was a much better steer wrestler, but man, to get on there without a free arm, that's really wanting to ride a bull.
Well, when I didn't have any balance with my spurs after that, if I wasn't dug in, I didn't have any balance.
Sure. Yeah, I can imagine.
Because there's no way to shift your weight if you can't move that arm and change the weight of your body with the direction of the hide of the bull.
Of course. Yes, sir. And so were you born right-handed?
Oh, yes.
You grew up in a small town, but doing a lot of ranch stuff on the side, right?
Well, I really never was a cowboy because I didn't have a horse and I didn't have a saddle. That's what I always wanted to be. And in those days, we didn't have pickups and trailers to move livestock. And so the Sanford Ranch headquarters were over in Carson County. So it was about 10 miles to headquarters from the little town of Sanford.
Which is where you grew up?
It was where I grew up.
Population 181?
Oh, no, just 100.
Oh,
if
just
we
100.
were lucky.
Okay.
If all the plants were functioning, we were 100. The river country in those days would open range from the New Mexico line to the Roberts County line over by Canadian. And 500 feet on each side of the cutaway bank was free range, open range. So the ranchers would just dump their cattle in there in the wintertime, especially when there was water, and not a lot of water, but enough to make grass grow. So there was feed and water, and there were wild horses in there. And they became wild because the people in Borger and Phillips and Plemons and places like that couldn't feed their horses in the wintertime. They'd turn them out on the river and then try to catch them in the spring.
Oh, my.
And so there was a whole bunch of horses. We used to run them down, and I'm really surprised we didn't get killed. And, because we didn't have any equipment.
Did you end up with a free horse out of that?
No.
Out of that mess?
No, we caught several of them, but then we didn't have any reason to keep them. We're going to go do that again. That was the fun part of it, was catching them.
I see. So what was the method? How would you get them corralled?
Oh, we'd run them up into town and then run them in a corral.
So the town was waiting for you, huh?
And yeah,
Oh.
the fence around Sanford was kind of like a banjo. The highway came in from the south, and then the fence ran all the way around town.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of a banjo, and it wasn't very big. If you wanted to go see somebody and they lived all the way across town, you'd walk all 3 blocks to visit with them. It was an idyllic place to grow up for a boy who loved the outdoors.
Oh, yes, I bet.
And I spent my whole childhood hunting arrowheads and fossils and trapping coons and coyotes and bobcats in that river bottom.
So did you do a lot of hunting as a kid?
I did.
Like hunting deer and stuff?
No, we didn't. There weren't any deer in there at that time. They'd all been killed out. The deer and the antelope had all been killed out during the Depression.
Oh, for food?
For food.
I'll be dang.
And so by the time I was growing up, there weren't any deer in that river bottom.
Yeah, you were born 38, is that correct,
I was
sir?
born in 38.
All right. Now, did your dad end up having to go to World War II or anything?
Yes, he was in the Navy.
Oh, man, how long was he gone?
He was gone 4 years.
So 4 years, kind of your 6 to 10-year-old era, somewhere around there, huh?
He left in 42.
Okay, so you've been 4 to 8 then.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And what did your dad do in the World War II? What was his?
Anything he wanted to. He was a very talented man. He could finish concrete so slick you couldn't stand up on it. He was a great stonemason. He was a great carpenter, had a good eye. He could walk in a plant yard and in 3 days know more about what made it operate than anybody else.
Wow.
And he'd get cocky and get drunk and lose his job.
Oh, no.
So, he had a terrible drinking problem.
Oh.
I loved him dearly and admired him. But I couldn't handle his drinking, and that was something that, just it got in the way because it bothered Mother.
That is a sad fact for a lot of people, I'm afraid.
Yep, it is. And people get involved in it and don't realize that some people call it a disease, and I call it an addiction because after a while it becomes a chemical dependency.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it can be quite a frightening one. Okay, so 15 years old, you get polio, and you were in the hospital for quite a while then, right?
I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
And you came out and tried to play a football game and couldn't go.
I tried to work out.
Work out, okay.
We didn't have a car, so my aunt came and got me. Mother was in the hospital. My little brother was born.
Oh, jeez.
4 days after I was admitted for polio, he was born cesarean. In those days, cesarean was a serious operation. I didn't see him till he was about 3 months old, except for Mother'd hold him up in the window, and I could see him out in the yard.
Oh, my goodness.
Standing out in the yard. Because we didn't know what the polio was. We didn't know anything about it. Nobody did.
Right. So they didn't really know how it was even passed back then, huh?
No. So anyhow, my aunt came and got me and asked me what I wanted to do. I said, I need to start working out. So she took me to the field house at Phillips High School. And the team was on the field, and I suited out. And I decided I better run some wind sprints and kind of get started again. So I ran about 10 yards and passed out, and I was out for about 2 hours.
If you would have kept pushing, you would have lost use of a lot more stuff, wouldn't you?
I might have.
So don't know.
But I pushed real hard to not lose any more than I did.
Oh, I can imagine.
So, for example, the doctor told me, said, now you're probably going to lose the use of your left leg. And I said, no, I'm not. So I'd ride a bicycle up and down the cow trails along that riverbed and up on the bluff.
Was it hard? Like, was your left leg weaker?
No, I don't think so. Even today, I don't think it's weaker than the right one.
Okay.
Because I worked real hard in keeping my legs in shape.
Yeah.
And working on the right arm.
Was your right arm, was it affected at all?
No.
No, okay.
Just the deltoid muscles.
Of the left shoulder.
And the left shoulder.
Wow.
See, that the deltoids activate the biceps and triceps.
Okay. So then you lost a little bit of curl strength then.
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah, I can't lift that arm up at all.
I did watch a bunch of your music, and I saw you would creep up the neck a little bit, a couple of frets with the left thumb.
If I need to.
Yeah. It's just so inspiring that you became a guitar player with a left arm injury that you did. Now, when did you start writing all these beautiful songs and poems?
I didn't write any poems except one poem when I was in about the 5th grade.
Okay.
I wanted to and felt like I could, and I did.
Was it for a girl or?
No, it was lamenting the fact that I had to sit there and look out the window at the river country and couldn't be out there. I was in a prison, and then a school prison. That really bothered Mother that I thought that she was a teacher.
Was she your teacher?
She was my 1st grade teacher.
But not 5th grade, huh?
I didn't try to write poetry. I started writing songs when I got down to Canyon to West Texas, what is now West Texas A&M.
And that was while you were in college or?
Yes.
Okay.
And I had some buddies who were making it really big in the world of music. And so I thought, I need to write some songs for them. So that's when I started writing songs.
And what is your method? How do you go about writing a song, sir?
I wait till I get an inspiration and I can see the whole picture in my mind, like a movie.
So it
like
comes
a
out
mini
quick.
Movie. Yeah.
So once you have that, you get it on paper and put a few chords and you're done.
The good ones happen really quick.
What are your good ones? What are the ones that you would, if somebody says, I need to hear some Red Steagall, what are the songs you would tell them?
The song that paid off the ranch and bought 2 lots on the golf course was Here We Go Again. And I got Ray Charles to record it the first time. It's been recorded 63 times.
Wow. 63 different artists?
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, that's incredible.
And so it's been really a good one. Lone Star Beer and Bob Wills music
Yeah.
has been a real good one.
I've been humming it all morning. That one sticks in my head really easy.
And I had a couple of hit records with Dale Reeves, A Dozen Pairs of Boots and Walk All Over Georgia. I had a top 10 record with a song called Beer Drinking Music that Ray Sanders did.
Yep.
I've had over 200 of my songs recorded by myself and other people.
Wow. Well, my favorites, Freckles Brown, Bandito Gold, and Dawson Legates. Those are the ones that, My America.
Uh-huh.
All of those are songs that, man, I love to hear and play. The poetry that you wrote, it came later. And how did that start?
Well, you're sitting in the office where I made the biggest major decision of my entire musical career.
Okay.
And that was in 1985, and we like to say that was the year that sad songs and waltzes quit selling. And so I came up here one night. I didn't have any place to go to work. The young people were taking over radio. I was already an old has-been. I wasn't getting any radio airplay.
47.
And so I didn't have any place to go to work. So I came up here to decide late one night what I wanted to do. And so I got out all those albums that I could find of my songs that people had recorded. And I put a record player down on the floor, and I sat here most of the night and played those songs. And then I said, okay, now how do you measure success? Do you measure it by the number of records you've sold? Do you measure it by how much money you've made? Do you measure it by how many people you've performed for? How do you measure success? And I realized that I had accomplished more than probably 2% of all the people who ever get involved in my business had done.
Right.
And so I said, okay, you're successful, but what you're successful at isn't working. So what are you going to do from now on? And I didn't have an answer. But the day before, I'd bought a Frontier Times magazine, and it advertised the first National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada.
Okay.
And my little brother Danny was living here with us, and so I went down to his house, and I said, Danny, won't you pack up in the morning and let's go to Elko and see what that's all about. So when we walked in to that auditorium, and I heard people doing poetry about the cowboy, and on nearly all of my albums, I had at least one cowboy song of some kind.
Right.
Something about cowboys, because that's been my whole world.
Right.
I realized that that's where I belong. So I came home, and it was as if I had been storing up all those poems for all those years, because for 5 years I didn't write another song. Wrote nothing but poetry.
I'll be dang.
It became a place where I belonged.
And does your poetry happen the same way as the songs? Do you see the picture and it just...
I see the whole movie.
Wow.
Once I get started. It tells me if it wants to be a song or a poem.
Okay.
Not all poems make good songs, and not all songs make good poems.
Right. Exactly.
So when I started writing the poetry, and I needed a place to go with that, and a friend of mine suggested that I do a 3-minute show on WBAP every morning. And I said, no, I can't do that. I don't have that many poems that are 3 minutes long. And he said, well, what will it take? And I said, at least a half an hour. And he said, well, let's just do a demo. So I put together a show that night in my mind, and the next day we went in the studio and I did a show like I wanted to do. Sent it to some friends of mine who were in the radio business, because I knew disc jockeys all over the United States.
Yeah, of course.
So I had several people. Mike Oatman at KFDI in Wichita, Kansas, was my real big champion. He and Mike Lynch had 22 stations at the time.
Okay.
And he said, Red, if you'll make this an hour show, I'll put it on all 22 of our stations. Well, that was the only incentive that I needed. So I changed the format to an hour show, went to the bank and borrowed some money, and hired a guy from Nashville to start clearing stations. And 30 years ago, we went on the air with 164 stations.
Man.
And we've never looked back. Radio has changed drastically. We have about 140 stations now, which is where we should be. That's about our share of the market. We're in 34 states.
And are you producing new shows still?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't produce new shows like I used to, because I look back at that 30 years of programming, and those guys that I was interviewing 30 years ago, they were the age that I am now.
Okay. So they're gone.
And they're gone. yet they cowboyed in the 40s and 50s.
I'll be danged.
None of them are alive anymore.
Right.
So I redo those shows. An awful lot of the old actors, I'm looking at some of them, Richard Farnsworth, and Ben Johnson, Casey Tibbs, they're all gone. I didn't record Casey. I didn't have the radio show at the time he died. I was very close to him, but I didn't get a chance to interview him, but I did Ben and Richard. And I got to thinking one day that, I'd like to hear their stories one more time in their voice. So I recycled those things.
That's awesome.
And I put new songs and new poems in the show, to give it some newness.
Right.
But yet, I call it the legend shows. And it's really been successful. So I've got 1,500 shows to choose from.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't realize there was that many. I read I didn't get all the way through it, but the collection of interviews, the one that starts with, it's Cowboy Corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I did want to back up and touch on that. So this was 1985 whenever you were deciding that maybe music was over for a while, but 10 years before that, you discovered Reba McEntire. And you were announcing the NFR at the time. Is that right, sir?
No, I was just there. I wanted to get back in rodeo. My world wasn't complete without hanging out with cowboys.
Okay. And was this after you left Hollywood then?
No, I was still living in Hollywood.
Living in Hollywood. Went to the NFR in Oklahoma City?
I went to the NFR after I moved to Nashville in 73.
Okay.
But I had started trying to figure out how to do it. And Walt Garrison and Ernie Taylor are good friends of mine. And they said, well, why don't you go with us to the finals? You'll get to see all the cowboys and you get the flavor of it again. And that's where I saw Reba.
Okay.
She was 19. And it was at the headquarters that year, the only year, it was the headquarters at the Hilton Northwest in Oklahoma City. And Mr. Justin would always rent a big suite, and all the cowboys and cowgirls would gather there after the rodeo. And we'd have a few drinks, and he'd have sandwiches and snacks and stuff, and we'd just hang out and be a family. And so I'm walking down the hall with my guitar, and this lady grabbed me by the arm and said, can I bring my little girl up and sing with you? Well, I'm not going to tell anybody no, because I'm a guest. So I said, sure. So I'm sitting over against the wall from the door playing a song, and she walks in with this little red-headed, freckle-faced girl on her arm and brings her over and sets her down beside me. And she started singing harmony with me, and I just went completely bananas. And then I realized that this is the girl that was just doing the national anthem. It made the skin crawl on my back.
Oh, boy, dang.
Because I had never heard anybody in my life that had that kind of control over their voice and bell tone perfect in every single note.
I'll be dang.
The year before, in 73, Glenn Sutton and I had, I was bulletproof in those days and radioactive. Nothing bothered me. Nobody told me I couldn't do anything I wanted to do. So Glenn and I wanted to ride a freight train and write songs. So I called, the only railroad I knew was the Rock Island. And so I called the Rock Island office in Chicago, Illinois, and asked for the office of the president. He answered the phone.
Nice.
I told him who I was and what we wanted to do, and he said, well, I think we can make that happen. So about 24 hours later, he called me and he said, Red, we got it done. Said, if you and Glenn want to meet the train in Amarillo, we'll put a special caboose on the end of that train for you. It'll be just your car, and you can ride all the way to Memphis. And then you can have a chance to see if you can write songs.
Wow.
Well, we wrote one song called I'm Not Your Kind of Girl. And that was the only thing we got written because we couldn't stay awake. Because the sound and the movement of that train, But it was an unbelievable experience. So I was looking for somebody to do a demo on that song. And those were the days when girl singers didn't sell records and they didn't sell tickets.
Oh.
You had to combine them with a guy. Just to, really get the money back on the road. So I had her mother bring her to Nashville, and I recorded that song and another song I had in my publishing catalog. And then we pitched it all year long and finally got her a record deal in November of that year, 75.
So did it take a full year to get someone to take her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because girls didn't sell records. And there were a jillion girls that could just blow your mind away with their ability to sing and present lyrics and create emotion with their voice.
Wow.
Tons of them.
The person that took that risk to publish her songs is smiling.
Well, she's an unbelievable person. I talked to her some way, either a text or an email or, a voice. I talk to her every day nearly.
Oh, my, that's amazing.
She's my family. She's my little sister.
That's great. You've been involved with a lot of really big names like Glenn Campbell and Kenny Rogers. And I mean, the list just goes on and on.
Well, we all grew up together in the music business in Hollywood. Glenn was first called guitar on every session.
He was pretty amazing.
Yes, very amazing. I went out there because of Don Lanier and Jimmy Bowen, and they had been part of a group in Canyon, Texas, with Buddy Knox. They had a group called the Rhythm Orchids, and they had 7 top 10 records in a row.
7 in a row.
Uh-huh.
That's amazing,
And
huh?
then Buddy got drafted and went to Korea, and Donnie stayed in Amarillo, and Jimmy went to Hollywood. So Jimmy found a way to, he was engaged to Nancy Sinatra. So Jimmy was engaged to Nancy, so he got to know Frank, and Frank put him in charge of Reprise Records.
Oh, my.
And he said he wanted him to do some of those old timers. So the first record he did was Everybody Loves Somebody with Dean Martin.
Nice.
So all of a sudden, Jimmy was the biggest producer in the world. And so Donnie went out there to be his union contractor because it was a different world in those days. And I was the assistant sales manager of the ag division, Shamrock Oil. And they called me one night and said, come on out here, we need some help.
Your degree was soil science, right?
Animal science and agronomy.
Agronomy, okay. They opened the door and said, let's go, huh?
Yeah, but I didn't know anything about show business, so I couldn't get a job in show business. But I was there to do whatever I could do that they needed help with.
Were you married yet?
No.
No, okay. And is your wife's name Gail? Is that correct?
This wife is named Gail.
Okay.
And she's my soulmate and my best friend and the whole world to me. She is my world.
And where did you guys meet?
She was married to my first cousin. And 5 weeks after they were married, he was killed in a car wreck. So she became part of my family. And just over time, we quit being kissing cousins and wound up being lovers.
Amazing.
It's been 46 years of bliss.
That's fantastic.
Anyhow, I stayed out in Hollywood for 8 years.
Did you like it out there? Did you fit?
No, I didn't. If I'd have had $100 to rent a U-Haul trailer to bring my stuff back to Amarillo, I'd have never stayed. Well, I just didn't like the closed-in attitude, But I learned a lot in Hollywood because you could be as good as you wanted to be or as bad as you want to be, and nobody cares.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they're going to be your friend. They don't care what you do because they don't want you to care what they do.
There's a lot of that going on now, huh?
Yeah, there is for sure. But it was a completely different world. And so I learned an awful lot about show business, and I learned what not to do and what to stay away from. I watched a lot of very talented people destroy their lives with drugs, alcohol, and so I had a pretty good lesson in that. Hell, I knew that I could let whiskey bother me. I didn't need all that other junk.
Sure, absolutely.
I never tried any of that stuff. I just couldn't stand the thought of it.
Well, that's good.
I had started recording then in 68, and my first record went into the top 10 in January of 69.
That's fast, huh?
In fact, I never did release a record that didn't get in the charts.
Out of 23.
Well, that's albums.
So what's the difference between an album and a record?
Just a single.
An album is a whole,
Is a collection.
And a record is a single.
Uh-huh.
Okay. How many singles did you release?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I got stacks of them.
That's incredible.
And they weren't all hits, but they were all chart records.
Nowadays, if a young person wanted to get in the music business, do you have any advice for them, or is it just way different?
Well, it's different in a lot of ways, and in some ways it'll never change because you're selling the most important product that you have, and that's yourself. And you have to be willing to get knocked down and stand back up or jump back up and stay in the game. You have to dedicate 100% of your entire being to the success of that, whatever that is. It's not just the music business. Whatever business you're going to be in. If you don't dedicate 100% of your energies to it, you're not going to be successful.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And so it's not, the music business isn't any different. Today, a lot of the success is people investing large sums of money in acts, and they own part of the act then for the rest of their life. There's always a case going on where somebody wants to get out of their deal. They forgot that they wouldn't have had the money to hire the lawyer if it hadn't have been for that person they're suing.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, huh?
It is. It's still rewarding when it should be rewarding. It's devastating when it should be devastating. But you have to take the positives out of it, live on them, and leave the negatives in the dustbin.
You know, every job has it, no matter what the job looks like.
It doesn't make any difference what it is.
Yeah. Have you written any novels or short stories beyond the poetry books that I've had?
No.
You don't see that movie, huh?
No. I've written my autobiography.
Is it published?
It will be with Texas Tech Press.
Do you know what you're going to call it?
Just call Red Steagall. There ain't no place to go to quit.
Oh, I look forward to that. And what do you do for writer's block?
I have writer's block all the time. I deal with it by leaving it alone because I can sit down and make words rhyme all day long, but it won't mean anything to you because it doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay.
I've got to have that story. I've got to have a storyline. I've got to have a reason for writing that set of lyrics. And so if I don't think I'm going to move you with it, then I don't complete it because it doesn't move me. The three things that are really important in any creative business, first of all, is original thought. Doing something that nobody else has thought of doing. You can only write a poem about a bucking horse one time. You can only talk about the black shingles on Granddaddy's old barn one time. You can't do it again. So you have to find another way to say it. So original thought is the single most important element in any artistic endeavor. And then in poetry especially, then it has to be perfect rhyme and perfect rhythm. The same way with a song. You have to have a rhyming structure. You have to have a melodic structure that makes sense and is a good marriage between the lyrics and the melody. And you got to remember that your audience only has a short span of time that they listen to what you're saying. And it's usually in their pickup or their car going down the road.
Right.
So the first thing they listen for is the beat. Does it move them? Is it something, a beat pattern that they really like and makes them move and, move around behind the steering wheel? And then secondly, if they like the beat, then they'll listen to the melody. And if they like the melody, they'll listen to the lyrics. The lyrics are the third thing they listen to. Now, in a folk art atmosphere where I like to perform, when you have a not fixed audience who knows exactly what they're coming to hear, and they'll sit there and listen to the lyrics, that's my audience. And it's never going to be any larger than it is. It's not going to be 80,000 people in Texas Stadium. I'm never going to play to those kind of audiences. I'd rather play to 500 people who are paying attention to what I have to say.
I've been told the difference between country music and jazz is that country music is 4 chords and 10,000 people listening, and jazz is 10,000 chords with 4 people listening.
Well, I admire jazz, but I don't enjoy listening to it.
I agree with you. You watch somebody play it on a guitar, it's pretty amazing, though.
Yeah.
You've done so much for cowboy culture, and you have helped so many hundreds of people. If you were writing your obituary or you had to have your legacy, what would you want to be known for?
That's a tough question to answer.
It is.
Because I don't want to sound like that I think I have all the answers, because I don't. I live my life the way I want to do it. I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I like to do for a living. I try to spend all the time that I can with people I love and people I appreciate and trust and honor. When it's all over with, I'd like for somebody to say he was a faithful servant and that he believed in the Lord and he believed in his country and loved his family with all his heart.
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. Well, I'm sure that's going to happen without question, Red.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
It was kind of strange for a little while. I thought that if you're going to be in the music business, why didn't you study music? After all this time, I realized that I never left my audience. I've always done everything that I did creative for the agricultural and rural community.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. You didn't slip into pop or any of that at all.
No.
Speaking of that, do you know music theory? Do you?
No.
You don't.
No.
So you have the chords you like, and you make your songs around those.
Most of the things that I've written that have really good melodies, somebody else was involved in the creation of the melodies.
Okay.
I'm a lyricist.
Okay.
I'm a poet.
Right.
And I'm proud to say that. Wrote a lot of songs by myself, but the songs that I'm really the most proud of, I had a good musician working on the melodies.
When you sat down to write a song, do you sit down with your guitar, or do you just sit down with a pad and pen, get your lyrics?
I get the storyline done.
Okay. And then you figure out the music around it.
Uh-huh.
Badger on your bunkhouse, that guy must be an incredible guitar player, huh?
He is. One of the greatest in the world.
Yeah.
He's retired now. He lives up in Oklahoma now and doesn't play.
He doesn't play? Boy, have you watch that hand of his go up and down that neck on that guitar.
Oh, he's an unbelievable guitar player.
I'll be dang. And doesn't play no more. What kind of guitar did you like to play, or do you have a favorite?
I have a Martin that I really do like. I have a closet full of guitars.
I'll bet you do.
But the one that I really play all the time is a Martin. It's made out of the materials that were used prior to 1941.
So it's a pre-war Martin.
But it wasn't built pre-war.
Okay.
But the materials came from that time period.
So was it made special for you?
No, I found it on a shelf. I have a friend who has a record store a music store in Weatherford. And so I went over and I told Craig, I really need a guitar that sounds good on these horrible speakers in these hotel ballrooms that I'm playing in. And he said, well, there's a whole wall full of them in there. So he unlocked the door. That was his locked door.
Oh, it was a private collection.
Yeah.
All right.
Not a private collection. It's just that's where the valuable guitars were.
Right.
And so I started at one end, and there was one in the middle that it just spoke to me. And I came back to it, and I came back to it the third time, and I said, there's no sense in looking any farther. This one is mine.
Nice.
It's a D28, and it's made from those woods that were cut and cured and shaped prior to 1941.
That's amazing. That's a pretty cool story. Now, I know you've traveled to a lot of different countries. Have you ever been somewhere and you thought, well, if I had to move somewhere, I could live in this country?
No.
No?
I've never doubted 1 minute that I was an American. I've never doubted 1 minute that I was a Texan. I like to say there's no such thing as an ex-Texan.
A little bit like a ex-Marine, huh? It doesn't really exist.
That's right.
Yeah. I've been so blessed in my career. I've shot horses on 6 continents. And oftentimes another horse shoer will ask me, well, if you had to live somewhere else, where would you live? And I feel kind of like you do about where we live in Missouri. It's, it's really a part of God's country there. Uh-huh. I always ask a guest to teach me something, and it's usually unrelated to whatever we're talking about. Can you think of something that you could teach me with words?
No, I don't know that I have any tricks that somebody else hadn't invented.
Yeah, but you could take credit for it right here on this podcast.
No, I can't. I just do what I want to do when I want to do it. You can call me set in my ways. You can call me a curmudgeon.
Curmudgeon.
Hard-headed.
I cannot remember the last time I heard the word curmudgeon. That's, I guess, when you sit with a poet, you're going to get a good vocabulary.
I just believe that I've lived long enough to sort out the things that I'm not going to do again.
Fair enough. Is there anything that you would like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
No, I'm just proud that you made the trip from Missouri to Texas so we could visit.
I should tell the world this trip has been quite an odyssey. So I flew down here to do this interview. It should have been a 2-hour and 4-minute flight, and almost 4 hours. We ended up landing in Weatherford, and I was having to do chandelles out of cloud cover and flying low to stay below the clouds. Luckily, my wife came with me because the stories are so much better if she's there to back them up.
Oh.
Well, Mr. Steagall, this has been a singular honor. You have some stuff you're promoting. Like you have your Cowboy Days coming up in October.
We do. This will be our 32nd annual Red Steagall Cowboy Gathering and Western Swing Festival in the Stockyards in Fort Worth.
And Ranch Rodeo with it as well?
Yes, a Ranch Rodeo with it. And I'm looking forward to completing 32 years.
Wow.
And I just got the word within the last week that I've been selected as the Rodeo Legend of the Year
Oh, my.
by the PRCA Hall of Fame.
Incredible. Will you be playing at your Cowboy Days? Is it a place that people can watch you perform?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll do a show on Saturday afternoon.
So the award you got, Rodeo Legend of the Year from the PRCA, and will you go out to the finals in Vegas to get that?
Yes. The convention, the PRCA convention, is the 3 days prior to the opening of the Finals Rodeo, National Finals Rodeo.
Nice.
So this will be at a banquet honoring me, and I don't know who else, for the Hall of Fame
Wow.
Museum in Colorado Springs.
And you're in the Cowboy Hall of Fame too, is that correct?
I'm a member of the Hall of Great Westerners at the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, yes.
Okay. Are you in any other Hall of Fame that I don't know about, that I haven't been able to find?
Well, let's see. I got the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, and from the Tri-State Fair in the Panhandle, they're giving me the Lifetime Achievement Award. I've gotten 9 Wrangler Awards from the Cowboy Hall of Fame for my music.
Wow.
And 5 for my television show.
Is it the Somewhere West of Wall Street show?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some beautiful history that you tell on that show.
I have fun doing that.
I just can't tell you how honored I am that you have sat across from me. Folks, you need to look up Red Steagall. I had no idea how much material there is out there. When I started researching this, I just kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I never found the end.
Well, good.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great life. Thank you so much. As a fellow that was a great pilot told me one time, he always closed every conversation with "fly safe."
That's good advice. Thank you very much, Red.
You bet.
Well, to get to live your dreams is something that I wish everyone would get to do. I can honestly say that I have gotten to do just that up to this point in my career, and that dream was to help others live their dreams through becoming great farriers. Heartland Horseshoeing School is the realization of that dream for Kelly and I, and we are coming up on our 30th year of teaching future leaders in the farrier industry. The Heartland is a special place. It is hard to describe to anyone who hasn't sweated and bled through the laughter and pain of becoming a Heartlander. Time is funny here. Students feel like they have been here for a minute, a month, and a decade at the same time, and suddenly the 24 weeks are over like they never happened, and the person that arrived leaves and is now a stronger version of themselves with the skills that will take them wherever they want to go. The Heartland is not a place for everyone, but if you are that person that can rise to the challenge and wants to be the very best at what they do, then it is a place for you. Check out heartlandhorseshoeing.com or email Chris at heartlandhorseshoeing.com.